Alice was a small girl with immense curiosity. One day, as she was reading a book under a large tree in the garden, she noticed a white rabbit wearing a waistcoat and carrying a pocket watch running past. "Oh dear, I'm late, I'm terribly late," the rabbit cried. With curiosity getting the better of her, Alice chased after the rabbit and found it jumping into a large rabbit hole at the base of a tree. Alice decided to follow down without thinking of the consequences. Suddenly, she felt herself falling down a deep tunnel that seemed to have no end. When she reached the bottom, Alice found herself in a long hall with many small doors all around it. On a table in the middle of the room was a small bottle labeled "Drink Me" and a little box with cookies labeled "Eat Me." "How strange," Alice said to herself. "Should I trust these labels?" But her curiosity won out. She decided to drink from the bottle, and immediately felt herself shrinking until she was small enough to fit through one of the little doors. She walked through into a world she had never seen before. As Alice stepped through the small door, she found herself in a beautiful garden filled with colorful flowers. To her surprise, these flowers had faces and could talk. "Who are you, little one?" asked a red rose with a somewhat unfriendly tone. "My name is Alice, I've just arrived here, and I don't know where I am," Alice replied. "What kind of flower are you?" a lily questioned, looking at Alice suspiciously. "I'm not a flower, I'm a little girl," Alice answered with surprise. The flowers giggled. "A little girl? We've never seen anything like that before. Looks rather like a weed to me," they whispered amongst themselves. Alice felt uncomfortable being called a weed, but before she could respond, she heard music and the sound of a parade coming from the other side of the garden. With her curiosity piqued, she walked toward the sound. Leaving the talking flowers to gossip about the strange weed they had just encountered, Alice followed the music until she came to a large lawn where a long table was set up. The table was covered with teacups, teapots, and sweet treats. At the table sat a man in a tall hat, a rabbit wearing a waistcoat, and a small dormouse sleeping in a teacup. "No room, no room," shouted the man in the tall hat and the rabbit when they saw Alice approaching. "There's plenty of room," Alice said, as she sat down in an empty chair. "Welcome to our never-ending tea party." The man in the tall hat introduced himself. "I am the Mad Hatter, and this is the March Hare. The one sleeping in the teacup is the Dormouse. Why do you have a never-ending tea party?" Alice asked curiously. "Because I made time angry," the Mad Hatter replied. "Now our clocks are stuck at 5 o'clock forever, which is tea time." Alice found the tea party to be filled with nonsense. They told riddles with no answers, sang meaningless songs, and kept changing seats for no reason. The Dormouse woke up to tell a dreamy story about 3 sisters who lived in a treacle well. Eventually, Alice grew tired of the tea party's absurdity. "This is the worst tea party I've ever been to," she said as she stood up from the table and walked away. After leaving the tea party, Alice walked deeper into the forest. She noticed a strange grin floating on a tree branch, and soon a cat's body appeared around the grin. "Who are you?" Alice asked. "I am the Cheshire Cat," the cat replied. "And you are?" "I'm Alice. I'm lost in this strange place, and I'm trying to find my way home," Alice answered. "This is Wonderland," the Cheshire Cat explained. "A place where everyone is mad, including me and you." "I'm not mad," Alice protested. "Of course you are," the cat grinned widely. "Otherwise, how would you have gotten here?" The Cheshire Cat told Alice that if she continued left, she would meet the Mad Hatter, and if she went right, she would meet the March Hare. "But they're both mad," the cat warned. "I don't want to meet mad people anymore," Alice said. "That's unavoidable," the cat replied. "We're all mad here." The Cheshire Cat suggested Alice visit the Queen's court, where the Red Queen lived. "But be careful," the cat warned before slowly disappearing, leaving only its grin behind. "The Queen has a terrible temper and likes to order people's heads to be cut off." Alice decided to follow the cat's advice and walked until she reached a large courtyard filled with strange card soldiers. When Alice arrived at the Queen's court, she found herself in a kingdom where everything was made of playing cards. The card soldiers were busily painting white roses red in the garden, working in a great hurry. "Why are you painting the roses?" Alice asked curiously. "Because we accidentally planted white roses." "But the Queen wants red roses," the 5 of spades answered fearfully. If she finds out we planted the wrong ones, she have all our heads cut off." Shortly after, the Queen's procession appeared, led by the White Rabbit, followed by the King of Hearts and the formidable Queen of Hearts. "Who is this?" the Queen shouted when she saw Alice, her voice loud and frightening. "My name is Alice, Your Majesty," Alice answered with a small curtsy. The Queen looked around and noticed the painted roses. "Who's been painting my roses?" she shouted in anger. Off with their heads, the card soldiers were immediately taken away, but the Queen turned her attention back to Alice. "Can you play croquet?" the Queen asked. "I believe so, Your Majesty," Alice answered uncertainly. "Good. Come play with us," the Queen said, leading Alice to a strange croquet ground. Where the mallets were flamingos, the balls were hedgehogs, and the croquet hoops were card soldiers bent over in arches. The croquet game in the card kingdom was chaotic and disorderly. Alice tried to hit the hedgehog balls with flamingo mallets that wouldn't stay still, while the croquet hoops card soldiers moved around constantly. "This isn't fair at all," Alice said to herself, as the Queen shouted off with their heads at anyone who displeased her. During the game, the Cheshire Cat appeared floating above the field, grinning as usual. The Queen was startled when she saw the cat. "What is that?" the Queen shouted, pointing at the Cheshire Cat. "It's a cat, Your Majesty," Alice answered. "Called the Cheshire Cat. I don't like its face," the Queen declared. "Off with its head." "But it has no body, Your Majesty," the King tried to explain. "It's just a floating head. How can you cut off the head of something that's only a head?" The Queen was furious. She turned to Alice and shouted, "Game over. Everyone to the courtroom. There's to be a trial." Everyone hurried to the courtroom, with the King leading, followed by the Queen and Alice. In the courtroom, the White Rabbit appeared with a small trumpet and a scroll. He read the accusation. "The Knave of Hearts is accused of stealing the Queen's tarts." The King sat as judge, with a jury of various bizarre creatures. The Mad Hatter and March Hare were also in the courtroom, called as witnesses. The Mad Hatter gave confusing and nonsensical testimony, making the Queen even angrier. "Useless testimony, strike it out," the Queen shouted. The March Hare trembled so much with fear that he spilled tea on the Dormouse, who was once again asleep. Alice felt herself growing larger again. She began to get taller and taller until her chair seemed very small beneath her. When it was Alice's turn to testify, she stood up confidently, now so tall she nearly touched the ceiling. "I know nothing about those tarts," Alice declared, "and this trial is complete nonsense." "Off with her head," the Queen shouted in rage. "Who cares what you say?" Alice replied, her confidence growing with her size. "You're nothing but a pack of cards." When Alice proclaimed that everyone was just a pack of cards, all the card soldiers rose up and rushed at her. "Off with her head! Off with her head!" they shouted. Alice ran out of the courtroom into the deep forest, her eyes wide with fear. She ran until she came to a fork in the path. "Which way should I go?" Alice asked herself. "That depends on where you want to get to," a familiar voice said. The Cheshire Cat appeared on a tree branch once again. "I don't know where I want to go. I just want to get out of here," Alice replied. "The left path will lead you to Humpty Dumpty," the cat explained. "The right path will lead you to the lair of the Jabberwocky." "What's a Jabberwocky?" Alice asked, both afraid and curious. "It's a fearsome beast," the Cheshire Cat answered, "with sharp claws, teeth like knives, and eyes of flame." With newfound courage, Alice chose to face the Jabberwocky. She traveled down a path that grew darker and more frightening until she heard a bone-chilling roar. As she entered a clearing, she encountered a beast with the body of a dragon, wings like a bat, and a head like a crocodile mixed with a snake. Alice stood frozen with fear as the Jabberwocky roared and breathed smoke at her. But she remembered the Cheshire Cat's words, "We're all mad here, including you," and felt strangely emboldened. "I'm not afraid of you," Alice said, though her voice trembled slightly. "I've faced the Queen of Hearts, talking flowers, and a nonsensical tea party. You're no more frightening than they are." The Jabberwocky seemed surprised by Alice's courage. It roared again, but Alice stood her ground. "If you're just part of my dream, why should I fear you?" Alice asked. As Alice stood firm, she noticed a sword nearby, stuck in a stone. She ran to grab it and held it high. "Come on then, Jabberwocky," Alice shouted, "I'm not afraid of you." The Jabberwocky lunged at her. But with courage and determination, Alice dodged and swung the sword at the beast. A screeching sound erupted as the sword made contact. And suddenly the Jabberwocky vanished, leaving only emptiness. "I did it!" Alice exclaimed with excitement. "I defeated the Jabberwocky." With the Jabberwocky defeated, a strange calm fell over Wonderland. Alice noticed that everything around her began to shimmer and fade, as if losing its substance. The trees, the grass, even the sky seemed to be dissolving. "What's happening?" Alice wondered aloud. "You've won, Alice," said the Cheshire Cat, appearing beside her. "You've conquered your fears and found your courage. Now it's time to return home." "But how do I get back?" Alice asked. "The same way you came," the cat replied with its enigmatic smile. "Remember, this is all a dream." "A dream?" Alice repeated, looking around at the fading landscape. The cat's smile was the last thing to remain before it faded away. "We'll meet again, Alice. Dreams have a way of returning." Alice felt a swirling sensation, as if she were being pulled upward. Colors and shapes blurred around her, and she heard distant voices calling her name. "Alice, Alice, wake up." With a start, Alice opened her eyes, to find herself back under the tree in her garden. Her sister was shaking her gently. "You fell asleep while reading your book," her sister said. "You must have been dreaming. You were talking about rabbits and queens and something called a Jabberwocky." Alice sat up and rubbed her eyes. "It was such a strange dream," she said. "But it felt so real. I was in a place called Wonderland where animals could talk, playing cards were people, and there was a queen who always wanted to cut off people's heads." Her sister laughed. "What an imagination you have." As they walked back toward home, Alice thought about her adventures. Dream or not, she had learned something important. That courage can be found even in the most nonsensical situations. And that sometimes, the world might seem mad, but that didn't mean you couldn't face it bravely. And as she glanced back at the garden, Alice could have sworn she saw a white rabbit checking its pocket watch, but when she looked again, it was gone.